Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for the longest time, you guys have been asking me to do a favorite brushes video, and I've put the video off for a whole hot minute because my brushes are always dirty basically, or if I clean them really quickly, or I need to use them quick and I just don't have time to do a favorite brushes. But this time I've cleaned my brushes and I'm gonna do my makeup as I show you my brushes, so you'll see them clean and you'll see them in use, okay? Because I want to show you what my favorite brushes are, as well as how to use them and how I use them. So yeah, I hope this is a super helpful video. I'm gonna leave any alternative brushes to ones that I'm showing you in the description box. I mean, these are just my eye brushes. I have so many brushes that, yeah, it's impossible to show you all of them. But if there's, for example, like a blending brush that I'm showing you and there's others that I think are just as good, yeah, I will leave them all in the description box so you can choose whichever one you like. I hope this video is super informative, helps you out, and yeah, if you want to know what my favorite brushes are and how I use them, then please keep on watching. So I'm going to start off with face brushes and we're going to work our way through my makeup. I've already primed my skin. Primer, I don't use any brush whatsoever. I just use my hands and rub it in. After primer, as you always see me do, I will always go in with some sort of concealer or corrector around areas of my face that need warming up, correcting, all of that. So my ultimate favorite brush for this is the Real Techniques Deluxe Crease Brush, which is this one right here. I've had this for years and years and years. I love that it's a really nice short dense brush, and what's great about this is that it gets on the product really well. Like, it will give you really good coverage with this brush, but it also helps you to get a bit of a soft blend, and it's a synthetic brush, so it's great for concealers and things like that. I always find that synthetic brushes work a lot better with creams and liquid products rather than powders. But again, it does depend on the type of brush. But yeah, this is amazing for getting my concealer on. The way I like to use this brush is by stippling the product on. And like I said, because this brush gives you a nice blend at the same time, you can just buff the edges with it as well. And for anyone that doesn't know what stippling means, it means you are just pressing kind of on the area, sort of pressing and patting, rather than dragging, pulling, or buffing. And then after that, I will go in with foundation, and I have a few favorite foundation brushes. I will leave everything in the description box, so don't worry. But one that I'm currently obsessed with at the moment is the IT Cosmetics Complexion Perfection brush. Now, this is a double-ended brush, so you've got foundation on one end and concealer on the other end. The reason I love this foundation brush is because it's kind of got a bit of a flat top but with rounded edges. Again, it's a synthetic head brush, so it works perfectly with creams, hence foundation. It's also the most perfect brush for stippling because of that flat top edge, but it's super soft. It's not going to leave you any streaky marks either, and it's also perfect for buffing if you wish to buff. Again, with this brush, like I mentioned before, I love to stipple with it. It gets your foundation super full coverage if you want it. That really depends on how much product you apply. But in terms of application, I just pounce this over my skin really nice and gently. I will blend and spread the product around my face just through stippling and just lightly bouncing it all the way around. So next, guys, I've already applied my cream contour. That's always the next step for me. So the brush that I love to use to blend this out is my Morphe M433. This brush is a duo fiber brush. I don't know what it is. It just gives you the most softest blend. If you're someone that actually likes to buff your foundation, something like that, then a duo fiber brush works really well for lots of things, just blending in general. So great for blending out cream contour, great for blending out foundation, great for blending out cream blush, anything creamy, again, it's perfect for. So the way that I love to blend my cream contour out is by taking it in really small circular motions, and I always hold my brush right at the end because that is what's going to give me like a lighter pressure. Next up, I will go in with some concealer. I've got a couple of brushes that I love to use to blend my concealer out. So the main brush that you will always see me use is the Morphe G37 brush. It's again a synthetic brush. Comes to almost like a tapered point, but not too pointy. It's really, really great for getting into all the small crevices of the face because it's not too big, but it still covers a large surface area, so perfect under the eye, perfect for the forehead and cupid's bow and chin. Then another brush that I love to use, which is similar to that if you can't get your hands on it, is the Morphe x Jaclyn Hill JH07. It's pretty much near enough the same, it's just slightly more fluffier. Same kind of tapered shape, and the size is pretty much the same. Again, I will use these types of brushes just to stipple the concealer around my face. I will not use these brushes to drag the products. You can if you want to buff, but if you wanted to buff, again, I would go in with like a duo fiber brush that I use for the contour. But this is perfect for stippling your concealer on so that you get maximum coverage out of your products. And then for the nose area or right underneath the eye, any detailed sort of areas where I need to get right in there, or just it's just a smaller area, I'll use a slightly smaller concealer brush, and that is the MAC 266 brush. This is actually a tiny duo fiber brush. This is literally one of my holy grail brushes. I love this one so much. Again, it's a synthetic brush, so it works perfectly with creams, and I love using this right under the eyes just to get any creasing out of my concealer in any fine lines, or I like to use this down the center of my nose just to buff out the concealer when I'm highlighting. So next is powder, whether you're baking, just setting quickly, any of that. I like to use my Real Techniques setting brush. This has literally been my go-to staple setting brush for years and years. I love it because, again, it's a synthetic brush, but it works really well with powder. Also, the reason I love this brush is because the shape of it is just so perfect. It's not too big. It's got like a tapered kind of point, so it really fits well in small crevices around your face, and you just have a lot of control with this brush, which is why I love it. So again, how I like to use this brush is by patting and pressing, and this brush is really good for getting down the sides of the nose. So once you've got enough powder on the brush, you can kind of sweep down your nose, and again, just because of the size of it, it works perfectly. So next, I love to use a face setting powder. So I have two favorite brushes for face setting. One of them is the IT Cosmetics Heavenly Luxe Wand Ball powder brush, and this is what it looks like. I basically love a big round powder brush, anything that's like this, because this is what's going to cover a large surface of your face. You can patch your powder on with this, or you can buff it around the face, whatever works for you. Another brush that I love as an alternative is the Hourglass powder brush. So on one end you have a really big dome sized brush, again perfect for the face, and then on the other side you have more of a smaller taper side. So this is perfect for, you know, dusting off your bake or patting on your bake, whatever you want. This is really good for getting around the small areas of the face. But yeah, you just get two in one with this brush. Next up is bronzer, and I have one that you always see me use, and it is the MAC 135 brush. This is just literally one of my favorite bronzer brushes ever. I love the shape of this. I love the size of this. It gives you coverage with your bronzer. However, it makes it look nice and soft on your skin. So anytime I want to buff bronzer on and I want it to look like it's in my skin, I'm gonna use a brush like this. Another brush I really love to use is the Smashbox Buildable Cheek Brush. This has got more of like a tapered shape to it, but the hairs on this brush are slightly longer and they're not as densely packed. So again, you're gonna get a really soft blend with this, but I feel like with this brush, I need to build up a little bit more because there's not a lot of hairs to pick up the product. And then lastly, one of my favorite brushes is this Ray Morris brush. Again, this comes to a really nice tapered point. I believe this is a goat head brush. This one I really love when I want to give myself a lot of shape and structure. So I wouldn't really use this for buffing and blending just because it's quite precise. But if I really want to go in with like a sharp contour, sharp bronze, then I will use this brush. The way I apply my bronzer is by just really gently going back and forth. I'm not applying too much pressure whatsoever. I'll let the brush hairs do the work rather than pushing the brush hairs into my face. I'll just gently rub the tips of them back and forth onto the areas that I want to bronze. If I ever feel like my bronzer's too harsh, that's when I'll use the circular motions, because that will just soften it all up a little bit. I'm gonna move on to my eye makeup and then we'll get back onto the face after, just because I am baking today. Next up, I like to conceal my brows. You can do this right at the start of your makeup or you can do it now. And I love to use the MAC 195 brush. This has literally been my holy grail brush to conceal my brows for years and years and years. It's a synthetic brush, so again, going to work perfectly with cream. So it's got like this angled and tapered point on both sides. So really, really great for getting around your brows, making sure they look really nice and sharp, but it's also really nice and flat for you to drag the product down and press the concealer into your skin as well. So another good purpose for this brush is cut creases, or when you want to pat out your eyeshadow primer or conceal your eyelids ready for eyeshadows. Another brush that is really, really good for concealing your brows is this Kiko Milano 01 brush. This again is a nice flat synthetic brush, but this one's got a slightly more rounded edge to it, but it's really, really nice and thin and fine at the tip. So it's perfect again for cut creases or getting right around your brows. So I'm going to be doing quite a full on colorful look just so that I can show you all the brushes that I like to use and different ways that I like to use them. So whenever I am going in with an intense color in my crease, which is where I'm starting off today, just for this particular look, I will always go in with a brush that is going to give me precision in my crease, but I'm also able to blend and control where I blend the product as well. So the most perfect brush to do that is the MAC 221. This brush is super nice and tiny. It's like a skinny blending brush. The hairs are densely packed, so it's really, really good for getting a lot of pigment on, a lot of eyeshadow on, but you can use the tips of the brush to get a really nice, perfect blend. And because it is so small, you get a lot of control with this brush. Another alternative to that one is the Morphe M433. It's basically the same thing. It's just the hairs aren't as densely packed. There's less hairs in it, but it pretty much does the same job. So the way I like to use this type of brush is I can either press on the product with this, I can push the product on with this, I can get right into the crease with this brush, but then when I want to blend, I'll just really, really lightly use the tips in small circular motions in order to get a soft blend. And then one of my other favorite blending brushes is the MAC 217 classic, literally everyone's favorite blending brush. This is perfect for pressing and packing on product. This is also really good for getting right into the crease and getting some precision, but also blending through the crease. It's just the most perfect size. I absolutely love this brush. But the dupe for that brush, which is also just as good, is the Morphe M433. They literally look identical and they basically do the same job. So again, really, really great for blending. And it really just does depend on which side of the brush you're using. So if you're using this flat side of the brush, then you can pack on product with it. But if you tilt the brush and use the tapered tip, then you can get a nice blend and you can also get precision. And just while I'm on the topic of blending brushes, another one which is slightly larger but amazing for blending out your shadows. This one I like to use more so for transition colors which are going through the crease or above it. And for me, this is almost like an eraser brush. If I feel like I've gone too heavy with some shadow, then this brush is basically going to soften and just erase that harshness. It's the MAC 224. I absolutely love the size and shape of this brush. And then of course there is a dupe for this, which is the Morphe M433. They literally are identical. They do the same thing. Obviously the MAC one has got more hairs in it, and it's slightly more fluffier, whereas the Morphe one is actually a lot more denser. So next up, I'm gonna create a cut crease. So the brush that I love to use, you could either use the concealer brush that I used earlier, or the other brushes that I love to use are, again, these are all synthetic brushes because they work super well with cream products, which is basically how we create a cut crease. The brush that I love to use is the MAC 242. I love this because the size of it is perfect. The hairs are long enough to cover a nice surface area, and the brush is super thin and flat, so you can coat the brush in concealer and really press on and pack on your cut crease concealer on your eyes. It also has a really nice thin rounded edge, so you can get right around that crease, so it works perfectly for that. This is also really good as a general concealer brush for when you want to spot conceal. Other alternatives that I love to use, which are the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill JH48 brush, or the Crown Brushes Mini Concealer C421. Again, they pretty much are identical. They're small synthetic flat brushes, but with a thin rounded edge. So again, perfect for pressing and packing on your concealer on your lids, but using that thin edge to get right around the crease. So next, I'm going to show you my favorite brushes that I love to use to pack on eyeshadow. So once all my crease colors are on, the perfect brush for my lid shade would be my MAC 239. This is just the most perfect shape, size, density, the whole lot. And to be honest, there are so many brushes out there that are just like this, so I will show you some others and leave other alternatives down below in the description box as well. But I basically just like to use this flat surface of the brush to pack and press on the product. I do not use this brush to kind of whiz it around my eye because you will get fallout. This is going to ensure that you are packing on the most amount of eyeshadow pigment on your eye. Now, so many different brands create brushes just like this. So the other alternatives that I have are, this is a Jeffree Star one. So again, it's just slightly larger, but it's the same flat kind of surface brush. There's also a Morphe JH51 brush, which is also exactly the same. And then Huda Beauty also do their own version of this flat shadow brush. Now that eye makeup is complete, it's now time to finish off the rest of the face. So I'm going to go back in with my setting brush. Like I mentioned earlier, it's really good for dusting off that excess powder that's been sat there. And now I can lightly do that. So next up is highlighter, and I like to use two brushes. I like to use a slightly smaller brush first. This is the Morphe and Jeffree Star JS9 brush. I like to use a small, fluffy, tapered blending brush. This is basically a big eyeshadow blending brush, but I like to use this on the cheek, and I love using this to place majority of the highlighter product right at the top of my cheekbones, and then to blend my highlight out. And also I like to use this brush along the rest of my face for highlighter. It's the Morphe M510. This is a classic highlighter brush. This is such a popular one. It's a super fluffy brush. It distributes the product beautifully, it blends beautifully, but it also, if you need to pack on highlighter, it also does that. And I'll use this to just buff and blend the highlighter out on my cheeks just to soften it up, and then I'll use this around my face. And then for blusher, I'm gonna go in with my favorite blush brush, which is the MAC 166. This is basically a fluffy angled brush, and there are so many different versions of that out there, so I'll leave alternatives again down below, but this is just the one that I always use, so much so that even after cleaning it, that it is still stained at the top. It's also the perfect size because it's not going to put your blusher anywhere where you don't want it. It's just going to fit perfectly around that apple of the cheek, and you can brush it back, which is how I like to use it. I much prefer a size and shape like this to like a big round blusher brush, because I just think they are too big for my face and you don't get the kind of finish that you want with that kind of brush. So guys, this is the completed makeup look, but it wasn't really about the look. It was more about the brushes that I use, how I use them. There are no rules to how you use your brushes. You use them whichever way you like. I hope this has helped you kind of narrow down which brushes you need. If there's anything I've missed out or not included, like I said before, it will all be listed in the description box, so make sure you check that out. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below, let me know if you've got any of these brushes that I've shown you or mentioned in this video, or if there's any videos you feel like I need, then leave them down below in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos, and make sure you get me on the gram and on TikTok. It's another thing. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all in my next video. Mwah. Bye.